Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar on how to use Quality Analyser, our new research and comparison tool. At the moment, everyone is muted. What I'm going to do is take you through the tool whilst everyone is muted, and then ask for any questions and feedback at the end, and I'll open the lines for everyone so that questions can be asked and fired back at me, and I'll answer any questions you have. So to start off with, Quality Analyser is our new comparison and research tool, which is available for free to all advisors who are members of the PFS. To access the system, if you haven't already registered, you can just go to www.advisorsoftware.com. And once in there, you can click the register button, complete a short form, and we will then give you access. You'll then receive two emails, one just detailing what your username is, and the other detailing what your password is, which you can then go in and change to something that you might be able to remember a bit easier in the future. To give you a bit of background to the tool itself, and to us as a company, we have been a specialist consultancy and research house for over 15 years now. We've been benchmarking providers historically based on their operational capabilities, but in the last 3 years we've broadened what we do to also look at product. Our benchmarking consists of surveys that go out to each provider, and within those surveys there's a whole host of questions, and to give you an idea of the scale and depth we go to, our typical survey for protection is in the region of about 4,500 questions. Each of those questions will have a multiple response option available to the provider to complete. And based on how positive their response is, they will get a score, which can then be used in the tools that I'm going to show you to help you compare propositions based on what your client needs are. Now, within QA, once you go in, on the left-hand side here, you'll see a host of options. The second one down gives you a link to a host of training videos, which you can go on and view. Essentially, we've uploaded a number of training videos, each of which are about 60 seconds long, showing you how to use different aspects of the tool. So you can go on and view that if you're not quite clear on how to use anything after this, and hopefully that should help. Below that, you can see some of the areas that we cover at present. So the first one is a workplace comparison, where we do GPP, GSIPs, workplace pensions, and auto-enrollments. The second one down is the protection comparisons that we run, which is what I'll be going through in this webinar. And there you can see all the different products that we currently cover. The one product that is missing at the moment is whole of life. However, we are working on building that question set out and hope to get that in there fairly soon. Below that is the savings and investments, which hasn't been built out yet, but we will be eventually adding a wrap and platform comparison. We also offer software comparison tools, and lastly, there is a due diligence area where we provide some data to people who are carrying out due diligence on platforms and so on. But the focus of this webinar is going to be protection, so I'm going to start off in there. There are two different levels of comparisons you can access within the system at the moment. You may have seen from recent press coverage that we have recently released ratings for both life protection and mortgage protection on a life-only basis. We will be releasing further ratings for other products in the future. We're just currently forming what those ratings will look like at the moment. But if I start off by showing you the life protection ratings and how to get to that. So, as I said, if you click on the protection tab, that will then give you a list of all the products available. If you click on the life protection product, that will then give you a further drop-down list. The same will apply for the mortgage protection on a life-only basis. And within that, you will see a ratings link and a fact sheets link. If you click on the ratings link, that will take you through to a medal table, which shows you at a high level the overall score we have given each provider that are in the ratings, but also each of the areas we have considered when forming the ratings and each individual provider's score or medal within each of those areas. So this has been these ratings were essentially formed by us going out to advisors and asking them for whatever product, in this case the life protection product, what is important for that product, what product features are important and what should we be considering. Based on the feedback we got from providers, we formed the areas that we were taking into account in the ratings, but also how we weighted the different areas. And what you can see here is the list on the left-hand side. This list does essentially go down in order of what we were told was most important at the top and the lesser important things at the bottom. For each of these providers, we have also created a fact sheet which gives you a bit more analysis of what we looked at and what each provider has in each of those areas. So if you click on the overall medal that provider received, you'll be taken through to the fact sheets, which I'm highlighting here. Now, the fact sheet, in the first paragraph here, you can see a brief analysis of the areas that they've scored well in and the areas where they may not have scored so well in. But then underneath that, for each of the areas we've analysed, we've given a brief synopsis of what each provider covers in each of these areas, ranging from the terminal illness all the way down to exclusions. That fact sheet can be printed. There's a print button there which will take you off to a screen which will allow you to print that fact sheet and distribute that to a client if you're recommending that provider, or keep on file if you just want something for compliance. The way we've set out these fact sheets is so that you could have a number of fact sheets side by side and quickly be able to see what the differences are between the providers in each of the areas. So that's an example of a gold medal from Aviva. If I go back to the ratings table and we went to legal and general, for example, scored a bronze, you will see that the format's exactly the same, but the descriptions will change slightly based on what they do and do not offer. So that is the ratings tables. We do also allow you to create more bespoke comparisons based on exactly what your client is looking for from a protection product. So to run you through that, I'm going to run you through a critical illness comparison. So I'm going to click on the critical illness link there. That will then give me a number of drop-down options. If you click on the comparison link, that will then take you into the comparison tool. The first page you come to will give you the option of running either a new report or a report from a template. You can also recall existing reports, or you can download a printable fact find if you wanted to take that out and run that through with a client out of the office, for example. If you're running a report from new, then you will go through the tool and nothing will be pre-populated. You'll have to go through and put all the inputs in as you go along. However, once you've done that, you can save all of the inputs as a template. Now, we are finding a lot of advisors are saving templates for different demographics of clients. So if we're looking at critical illness, an example of the differences between different demographics might be a male aged 30 that's married with 2 children would have probably slightly different priorities in what we're going to look and compare to a female in her 50s whose children are grown up and left home, for example. So in the first example, the male with children, you might focus on things like children's critical illness and the more male-centric critical illnesses. Whereas with the female, you're going to focus on the more female-centric critical illnesses. And because her children are no longer dependent on her, children's critical illness is going to be much less of a priority, and therefore you might not want to compare people based on their children's critical illness definitions, for example. So to run you through the tool, I am going to run through from a template. And as you can see, if you click on that new report from a template, you will then get a drop-down list of all the templates you may have previously saved. So it's just a case of selecting the template you want to run through with and clicking continue. That will then take you through to a page which has two columns. The left-hand column shows all of the product features that we cover, and the right-hand column shows the more operational side of things. So things like the underwriting services, who they integrate with, the e-new business process, and so on and so forth. And at this stage, because I'm running this from a template, you can see that some areas have been pre-populated with ticks. If you was running this completely from scratch in a new report, nothing here would be highlighted, and it's just a case of selecting up to 10 areas that are going to be important to your client that you want to compare providers on. So here you can see I've got 5 different areas which I'm going to run a comparison on. If you run your mouse over any of those areas, it will show you in more detail what we look at within that. So there you can see for plan options, all of the different plan options that we look at, the critical illnesses, for the ABI conditions, all the ABI conditions. So that will give you a little bit more insight as to what you will be comparing if you select any of those areas. Once you've selected those areas, you can then continue on, and at the next stage we will ask you to weight those areas in order of importance. So the system will automatically pull through all of the areas that you selected at the previous page, and it will give you 100% to allocate amongst those areas. And it's just a case of weighting each area in order of priority. Again, because I'm running this from a template, you can see that the weightings have been pre-populated. If you're running this from a new report, you would need to go in and manually input the weightings. Alongside the weightings, there is a notes capability. So what this allows you to do is basically type in any notes, which may be details of any discussions you've had with the clients or reasons why you've selected certain areas. That will then be pre-populated into the final reports and will give you an added audit trail of the process you've gone through when selecting areas and the reasons why. So if I add a note, so once you've added your note, you'll clearly see that you have added a note in that area. You can go in and edit that, and that is completely up to you how you use that. You do not have to put notes in, but as I said, it does add an added layer of audit trail to exactly what you're doing. Once you're happy with your weightings, you can then go on and select who you want to compare. So again, here you can see a full list of all the providers that we have in the tool. There is one provider missing who is currently completing our benchmarking and should be in here soon, we hope, and that's Old Mutual. But as I said, we are hoping to get them in there fairly soon. On this page, you can select individual providers to compare, or alternatively, you can just select everyone by clicking on the Select All. We can then continue on, and the system will then quickly show you a playback of what you've selected and how you've weighted those areas and who you're looking to compare. Now, if you get to this stage and you think there's an area I've missed or the weightings aren't quite right, you can refine what you have input there by clicking on the Refine Sections button, that will bring up that same list that we saw on the previous screen, and you can go in and amend any weightings or add in any areas as you wish. We can then go on and view a very early initial report. So what the system does is, based on a combination of the areas that you have selected and how you have weighted those areas, combined with how we at F&TRC have benchmarked each of the areas that you've selected, you will get an early indication of who might be a best match for your client. However, at this stage, we've only selected very high level areas, and we may want to go into a greater level of granularity about exactly what we're looking to compare. So an example of that is we've selected plan options. However, there is a whole host of plan options that we look at, and some of them may not be relevant, so you may not want to include them. So to drill into more detail, we can then continue on to create a more detailed analysis. That will take you through to a page where you can input details of your clients. The only thing we mandate here is the name and date of birth, just because there's some filters in there based on the date of birth. Once you've gone through the process once and added the clients, they will appear in that drop-down list, so you can quickly rerun a report for them without having to re-input their information. If we then click continue, the system will then ask us to drill into the detail of exactly what we're looking to compare. So the first area here, waiver of premium, is a good example. If we've selected waiver of premium, our clients, depending on our client's circumstances for work, we may want a certain deferred period. So the example here, I've selected 3-month deferred periods because in this example, my client is covered by work for 3 months, but then won't get any pay after being off ill for 3 months, and therefore I want the waiver of premium to kick in after 3 months. I also want this on an own occupation basis, and therefore I've selected that. So I've only selected 2 areas within waiver of premium, and those are the only 2 areas that will be taken into account in the end results. Again, it's just a case of going through and applying a weighting to each of the areas that you're looking to compare based on their priority. Again, you can add in notes to any of these areas based on any discussions you have had with your client or reasoning as to why you've selected any areas. Again, because I have run this from a template, all of these areas have been pre-populated. If you were running a new report, you would need to go in and manually input the weightings in the areas you're looking to compare. So the earlier option I gave of plan options, here you can see I'm only taking into account free cover, hospitalisation benefit, telephone counselling services and terminal illness. You can select whatever you want from that list and weight them however you want. When we come to the critical illness conditions, most people that are using the system are weighting the critical illness conditions where a client is more likely to claim heavier than anything else. Excuse me. So in this case, what I have done is weighted cancer, heart attack, multiple sclerosis and stroke heavier than anything else. If you go through the weightings and your total weighting doesn't quite add up to 100%, so here you can see I've done the 5 most commonly claimed on conditions, fairly heavy, but I still have 10% to allocate. There is a button at the top which will allow you to apply weightings equally among any areas that have not had a weighting applied. So if I select that button, the system will then go off and allocate any remaining weighting across those areas that didn't already have a weighting by clicking that. There is also an apply weightings equally among all subsections area, so if you wanted to weight every single critical illness equally, you can do that as well. The same applies for the non-ABI critical illness conditions. You have the same functionality there. In this case, I've just selected a few areas that I wanted to compare based on what my client's needs were. So once you've gone through, applied all of your weightings, and everything adds up to 100%, you can then continue on. We'll again play back to you at a high level what you've selected and how you've weighted those areas. But then for each of those high level areas, what you've selected within those and how you've weighted each individual area. Again, you can make any changes as you wish by clicking the Refine Section button. You can then go in and change any weightings. We'll also play back to you who you're looking to compare. And then at this stage, you can give your report a name. So that might be, for example, your client's name, just to personalize the report a bit more. You can give the report a description, whereby you might input details of what you've selected and how you've weighted areas, just so in the future, if you go to recall a report, it's a lot easier to find the report that you're looking for. And then lastly, here you can elect to save what you have done as a template. So if you check the box there and give your template a name, and then click on Generate Detailed Report, that will then save everything you've done as a template so that you can run through the tool in future very quickly. If you have if you're doing it on demographics of clients, for example, if you had another male who was married with no children, you could quickly run through that template report, making any subtle changes as you wish in order to get your final results in a much quicker fashion. We can then go on and generate our detailed reports. So what the system will do now is go off, and based on everything that you've selected and how you've weighted those areas, our benchmarking will have changed because you have highlighted specific areas that you're looking to compare, and you might have changed the weightings, and therefore the overall result may well change as well. Again, it's worth noting that any areas that haven't been selected or haven't been weighted are not taken into account. So here you can see the overall results, and what we're saying to advisors here is it's now, just because Legal and General, for example, who are coming bottom here, may well be one of the most competitively priced products if you ran through a quotation portal to get a quote comparison. However, what this system does is give you the ability to say to your client, yes, Mr. Client, Legal and General is the cheapest option. However, based on my qualitative research, Bright Grey, who are £1 or £2 per month more expensive, have much more features that meet your needs, and therefore, is it worth spending that £1 or £2 per month more in order to get a more comprehensive level of cover? So that's your overall results. We will also show you the results in each of the areas that have been selected, and as you can see here, it will pull through any notes that you have added. So that's the results in each of the areas that you've selected. And then you have the option of two different types of reports. You can print either a summary report, which I'll generate, which is just a 2-page report showing you what the overall results are and the weightings that you've input. So I've just generated that. So there you can say it's just a 2-pager showing what you've selected and how you've weighted it, along with the overall results. Now we're finding some advisors are using that to addend to their suitability letter or just save to file. Other advisors are not generating that and just going straight for the full detailed reports. If you elect to do a detailed report, the system will ask you if you want to include the data tables showing all of the questions we ask in the areas that have been selected, along with the responses from the top 5 providers in the results. If you select yes to that, then it will populate it. If you select no, then it will not be populated. It will then ask you if you want to include a 6th provider. So it will automatically include the top 5 providers in those data tables, but it does give you the option of selecting a 6th provider. So if you're up against someone that you know about, you could add them in if they're not coming in the top 5, just as an added layer of being able to see exactly what they do or do not do. In this case, I'm just going to proceed with the top 5. That will then go off and generate that report. Now, for critical illness, we do include every provider's critical illness definition. And if you have selected every single critical illness, that will mean that the reports will be quite big, especially if Vitality Life come in the top 5, because their definitions, as I'm sure you're all aware, are enormous. So the critical illness reports do take a little bit longer to generate than other reports. They're generally in the region of about 1 or 2 minutes. However, I do have one ready just to show you. So this is a detailed report. It will show you the overall comparison results. It will also show you how each provider has scored in each of the areas that have been selected. And if you select no to the data table options, that's where the report will finish. If you select yes to the data tables, then as you can see, we will populate that report with every question we have asked, along with the responses from each of the providers. Now, here you can see the critical illness definitions being populated there, and that does make the report quite big. However, if I go through that, when you get to the other areas, it's not as detailed, because all of those are multiple response option questions, and you can see most of them will be a yes or a no, but you can see all of the questions we've asked in each of the areas, along with all of the responses from each of the top 5 providers. So that is how you can navigate through the comparison tool, and there you can see the report has generated. It essentially works the same for every product. The differences will be the areas you can select, and what you compare will be different based on what product you're looking at and the features of those particular types of products. The ratings, as I said, at the moment we have life protection ratings and mortgage protection on a life-only basis. We will be broadening that out and adding ratings for each of the other products we have in the system. As I said, we're currently working on those, and they will be coming out a bit later in the summer. So I've taken you through the tool in quite a pace. What I'm going to do is unmute everyone now, and if anyone has any questions, please do shout out, and I'm happy to answer. So everyone's been unmuted now. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. So Nilesh, I've seen you've raised your hand. Have you got a question? No, if there's no questions, then I'll leave you to go and have a look at the site. If you haven't already registered, as I said, you can access it at www.advisorsoftware.com. If you have any questions, then you can contact me. Please feel free to email me. My email address is adam.higgs, Higgs, at F&TRC.co.uk. So if you've got any questions, please do email them through. Otherwise, if no one has any questions on this call, I will leave it there, and I hope that the system can help you all in your research.